The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television. Major funding for your legislators is provided by Move Minnesota, a statewide coalition fighting for a 10-year commitment to fixing our dire transportation needs. A safe, reliable transportation system strengthens Minnesota's economy. Join the conversation at movemn.org. Additional funding provided by Flaherty and Hood has provided quality legal and legislative services to clients in Greater Minnesota for more than 20 years. Our legal team focuses on municipal employment and environmental law, while our lobbyists energetically represent clients at the state capitol. Online at flaherty-hood.com. MAPE members, making Minnesota clean waters, safe communities, quality education, and veterans care happen. We work hard for Minnesotans. Live from St. Paul, Minnesota, we welcome you to the 35th session of Your Legislators, a roundtable discussion featuring state lawmakers who are prepared to answer your questions and discuss important issues affecting the citizens of Minnesota. Now, here is your moderator for tonight's program, Barry Anderson.
Good evening and welcome to this week's version of Your Legislators. We're delighted that you have joined us on what appears to be a very nice spring evening. We're going to have a few days anyway of nice warm temperatures before we get a little reminder maybe that maybe winter isn't completely over yet. But nonetheless, we're going to have an opportunity for some great conversation this evening about issues of public policy facing Minnesota. I want to first thank those of you who tuned in last week for the pledge drive. We were, of course, not with you last week. We had a week off. We're back here. We'll be with you again now every week until the legislature goes home. I want to remind you that this is your program, hence the catchy name, Your Legislators. So we invite you to send in your questions electronically. The various means are described on your screen. We're Twitter, Facebook, email. It's extremely sophisticated, and I don't understand how it all works. But we'll see that the questions get to the panel, and we'll see that you have an opportunity to visit with your legislators. We begin this evening, as we do each week, as we are unraveling the mysteries of St. Paul, by introducing our distinguished panel. And tonight, we really do have a distinguished panel. All veterans of our program have been with us many times, and we're just thrilled that they can be with us this evening. To my immediate left, from District 66A from St. Paul, Representative Alice Hausman. Representative Hausman, nice to see you again.
Good to be here.
Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
I live in St. Paul, but I've really become a suburban legislator. Every redistricting changes me a bit, so I now represent a little bit of St. Paul, the cities of Falcon Heights, Lauderdale, and most of Roseville. If you've been to the state fairgrounds or if you've been to the St. Paul campus of the university, you've been in my district. I remind people, by the way, that the St. Paul campus is not really the St. Paul campus, it's the Falcon Heights campus.
So if you don't like the cheese curds from the state fair, call Representative Hausman.
That's correct.
All right, very good. Another veteran, been with us a number of times from District 4, Twin Valley, Senator Ken Eakin. Senator Eakin, thanks for joining us. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks. I'm in my first term in the Senate, although I served 10 years in the House with Representative Hausman and Representative Nornes. But in my first term there, I'm serving on the Health and Human Services Finance Committee, on capital investment, on higher education, jobs, ag, and rural development, and also on the elections subcommittee. I represent District 4, as you said. The two population centers would be Moorhead and Detroit Lakes. It includes all of Clay County, all of Norman County, and 3.5 townships in Becker County. And as you said, I'm from Twin Valley. I live 3 miles west of town on the farm where I grew up, living in the house that my great-grandparents built. And my wife, Lori, and I are raising our 4 children there. And we have children that our oldest is in college, and we have one in high school, one in junior high school, and one in grade school.
You've got the education issues all covered, right?
Yeah, right. And I am a teacher by trade, a high school teacher.
Social studies, civics, as I recall?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. In that district, how large is that district? Just give our viewers some idea of what it means to be a representative from that part of the state.
Yeah, it is a very large district, as I said. It includes 2 complete counties and then part of another. So
the travel time from one end of the district to the other?
Yeah, well, to go from one end to the other would be about an hour and a half.
All right, very good. Also joining us, another veteran of our program, District 25, Rochester Senator David Senjum. Senator Senjum, Rochester's a little different than Twin Valley, I suspect. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
They're all good people. No, good to be here tonight, Barry. Dave Senjum, Rochester, Minnesota. I worked at Mayo Clinic for like 44 years, retired now, but I've been in the legislature since 2003. Serve on taxes, transportation, and capital investment. And also the Legislative Energy Commission, which is fairly active as opposed to the case some years ago. But enjoy it and look forward to a great program tonight.
We're delighted to have you with us. And finally, from last and certainly not least, District 8A, Fergus Falls, Representative Bud Nornis. Representative Nornis, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good to be here. Thank you very much. I'm in my 10th term now in the House, and that's been a very enjoyable, almost 19 years, going on 20. I served this year on 5 committees, all 3 education committees, and I also am privileged to chair the Higher Education Committee, Ag Policy Committee, and the Ways and Means Committee. And there are certain days, and that's all you do, is sit in a committee somewhere. I live in Fergus Falls. Half of Otter Tail County is my district, so compared to your Senate districts, I've got a piece of cake. And I've got the west half of a county that's got over 1,000 lakes. So you can imagine I've got farmers, I've got resorts, I got, you name it, I've got it. And it's all good. And so I'm very happy to represent that part of our state, right on the interstate. Stop in sometime.
All right, very good. So we have a couple of questions from viewers who want to talk about the 50-foot dedicated area for environmental reasons, water quality reasons. That we've discussed this on several programs over the course of this year. And as it turns out, we have, I think, a little news to report. That issue is generating a little interest. Let's start with you, Senator Eakin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where that's at in the Senate? And because I think that's really kind of a hot topic at this point.
Yeah, well, there's a hearing taking place on it tonight as we speak, and it is a hot topic, and it's an important topic. I do believe that the 50-foot proposal is a one-size-fits-all model that we should be wary of. I think pursuing one-size-fits-all kind of models, and you need to take into consideration, obviously, the type of water that you're talking about, the type of land, the use of the land around it. So I've always been leery of using one-size-fits-all kind of models. And I also think that you need to take into consideration economic impacts and take into consideration the fact that the ag economy right now has been taking a downturn, and farmers have been getting caught with the increasing land values. And even though the economy has been turning downward, the ag economy tends to be counter-cyclical. So when the general economy is doing better, oftentimes the farm economy is struggling more. And so I think that we have to be conscious of that, sensitive to that fact, that right now a lot of farmers are getting caught with increasing property taxes and lower income. And so I think that we need to also think about that as we're looking at regulations that may impose greater costs. I do think that, obviously buffer strips are important as well, and the way that I think you best accomplish that goal is through more carrots and getting RIM dollars, for instance. And I think the RIM program, the Reinvest in Minnesota, is an outstanding program that farmers can take advantage of, and that does result in more buffer zones and things of that nature, which I think are very beneficial both to the farmer and to the environment. So, and those RIM dollars, by the way, the RIM dollars that we do allocate or get through the Minnesota legislature leverages about 3 times as much money from the federal government. And I always point out to people that we don't get back as much from the federal government as we put in. This is one good way to get more of those dollars back here into Minnesota. And so I've always been more a supporter of the carrot rather than the stick. And the RIM program is a good carrot.
Senator Senjum, your thoughts?
And I would certainly agree with the statement here in the RIM program. And we've, over the years, put a fair amount of bonding money into RIM, and appropriately so. And hopefully we can continue to do that. I've not been a part of any committee discussion on this bill, nor, frankly, have I read it. But it certainly does raise questions. Anytime you're going to, if you will, take land from someone, it does raise, I think, appropriate questions. How do you do it? Is it an easement? Is it a taking? What are the reimbursements back to the farmer? all those things. And I wouldn't, frankly, wonder, what a river is, what a stream is, what a ditch down the middle of the field might be, how much of this covers. So I'm sure probably within the bill a lot of this is defined, but I think it's going to be a pull to move this through. We do happen, by the way, to do this in Dodge and Olmsted County at the time, and frankly, I guess it seems to have worked pretty well, but it was done locally by the county boards through ordinance, and not a lot of debate.
Here's why we have to take it seriously. We don't want to become what's happening in Iowa, where Des Moines is suing 3 rural counties over issues like this. I'm on the House Environment Committee, haven't been on that a while, but back there this year. And in testimony, one of the farmers' groups used that term, taking, that farmers consider this a taking. Now, we aren't taking the land, they're using it in a different way, but he said they consider it a taking. And so I felt compelled to speak for those millions of other people in our state for whom clean water, swimmable, drinkable water is something that they expect and deserve. And as I think this is a quote from the governor, the water belongs to everyone. And so that same argument about taking could relate to the water, all those millions who want that water cleaned. If we allow one entity to continue to have pollution flow into that water, there could be citizens in this state who describe that as a taking, that quality of water is being taken from them. So it does seem to me we can't be head in the sand about this. We have got to look at a reasonable way to do this, and so I've been very supportive of the governor's initiative. I think he's very courageous on this, and I think he's headed in the right direction.
I haven't been directly involved in a committee that's been dealing with this even ag policy. If they talked about it, I wasn't there, but I've been talking to farmers, and I know there's a lot of concern. And the question I have, I happen to live along the Otter Tail River. I live right on, as close to the water as you can get, I guess. Now, is this going to bother, do I have to give up 50 feet of my backyard under this regulation? I mean, if the farmers have to, wouldn't those that live along the river be under the same restrictions or regulations? I don't know. It would be less lawn to mow, but it would look horrible. It wouldn't look good. So I just have a question. And I think the best way, and I agree with Senator Eakin, I think it has to be case by case. We have a lot of ditches in Otter Tail County that only have water in them during the spring, just for a short time, or unless they have a heavy rain, but that's unusual. So a lot of our ditches are just there. And why you have to have this 50-foot buffer strip along that entire area just doesn't really make sense.
I think we shouldn't farm right up to the edge of the water, and we shouldn't have fertilized mown lawn right up to the edge. Around Como Lake, we used to have grass right up to the edge of the lake until we understood that none of the water was getting filtered. And so we allowed vegetation to grow up around it. It took a little education on the part of some people. They actually thought St. Paul must be trying to save money or something. They're not mowing here. But it was intentional, and it begins to gradually change the water quality. So I think it would be the same for lawns and for crops.
I don't want to dwell on it, but I do have about a 4-foot strip that I just let grow. So I think this is going to be interesting as we move forward, but we have to be, I think, slow and not just unilateral. That's not. Yeah.
We've got a couple of transportation-related questions. One viewer is concerned about trains carrying crude oil and getting better public safety, particularly in rural areas with those trains. And then we have another viewer that suggested that we should allow a gas tax increase, but sunset it, maybe a certain amount, and sunset it in a year or two as a way to help fund some improvements rather than funding it forever. Well, there are a couple of transportation questions. Who wants to take a run at that?
And coincidentally, rail safety is the committee issue that I just left.
So there
in
you
fact,
go.
I even had to get permission to leave the committee because they weren't quite sure how that vote would go. Clearly, in the last few years, because of the success that North Dakota has in the oil industry and the impact that has had on our state, this is a whole new problem for us that we haven't faced before. I happen to, in my corner of St. Paul is a Como rail crossing that, as I read the MnDOT report, is the most densely populated crossing in the entire state right there. I can tell you, when those people see what has happened a few places in this country where the explosion happens and they see how devastating it is, and they know how close their homes are to that track, it is striking fear in the hearts of people. There's a lot of emotion, anxiety about it. There's a huge amount of study that's been done. MnDOT has done a lot of work, and they're beginning to prioritize some of these areas for attention. I think we'll certainly see it in some bills this year.
Representative Dornis?
Well, I know it's a concern because I've got a very busy rail line that goes right through the corner of Otterfield County, right through the community of Perham, New York Mills, right, and they travel fast. And so there is danger, and I've seen trains that are so long you can barely see one end from the other. So that's good. North Dakota, that's really pumped a lot of energy and money into the economy, not just for North Dakota, but even at least my part of the state is benefiting from that in many ways. So I don't know how you can make 100% accident proof, but there is danger there. I've watched as trains have gone by, and you could actually see the spikes moving up and down. So there needs to be maintenance. That's the first thing that the rail companies have to. And I know they're investing a lot of money, at least in the area where I'm talking. So they know the problem, and they're trying to address it.
BNSF, I think, in a 2-year period is investing $6 billion. Probably tells you how much profit they're making on this additional business that they have. What we soon realize at the state level is there's very little we can do when it comes to railroads. That they just remind us that is so much of a federal issue. So we make a lot of noise, and we look for the solutions that we can provide, but we have some limitations at the state level in terms of what we can do.
Senator Eakin?
Yeah, and Representative Hausman's correct that we're limited because it's interstate commerce, and the Constitution says that the state can't interfere with interstate commerce, but there are steps that we need to take as a state. That includes addressing the rail safety issues, and that's not just the dangers they pose as far as possible accidents that may occur on the rails, but also the problems with emergency vehicles being able to get across the railroad tracks in emergency situations. It also poses problems as far as congestion and does harm to economies in some of the cities that these trains are going through. I represent Moorhead and Detroit Lakes, as I said earlier, both of which have all kinds of these trains going through. Moorhead is a real hub for a lot of the trains that are coming through, so there's lots of congestion problems there. And we need underpasses, for one thing, to get across those tracks. And so I think that's one thing that we as a state are going to have to do is more funding of underpasses. I think we have to be innovative in how we generate some of the revenue we need for those underpasses. I do think that if there's any way that we could tap the railroads or the oil companies, because they're benefiting from the rail traffic that's occurring, they should maybe pay something also for the safety that's necessary for the communities that they're going through.
Well, Moorhead is really short on overpasses, underpasses, whatever you need.
It is. It is.
So I can see the problem they'd have.
Yep. We're actually looking at 3 different places to put underpasses.
And the second half of that question, of course, was the gas tax and transportation. And that question was just made so much more difficult when that forecast was announced that suggested over the next 2.5 years we may have a surplus of something like 1.8 or 1.9 billion. I think it's so important for us, for people to think that that's money in the bank and therefore we don't have to do anything, is to remind people it's a forecast if everything goes well. But here are the kinds of things it's based on. Oil prices, and we're already seeing some change in terms of what's happening to oil prices. The strong dollar. What happens if there is a war, if there is suddenly instability in the world? What happens to the strong dollar? Wages are up, but suddenly Target announces that they've got a massive layoff. All of those things potentially change that forecast. So we've got to be exceedingly cautious about it. The ad campaign that's going on right now about give it all back, there's nothing to give back yet. If everything goes right, the most we'd have in the bank by this summer would be about 400 million, I think. So there's nothing to give back yet. We'd have to be very careful about cutting taxes because it's all preliminary to what actually happens. But it's going to make that issue of raising a gas tax so much more difficult because of public perceptions.
And I would just say Republicans are certainly going to look to within first. You know, what are the options relative to the existing cash? And albeit, you know, it is a forecast, but in many cases we put great reliance on those forecasts. They may bounce a little bit here and there, but they've been pretty good through the years. But again, looking from an internal point of view, what other available money might there be? It's been suggested, for instance, sales tax on auto parts, truck parts, things like that can raise a fair amount of money. And there's other, perhaps, avenues that can be looked at. So I think we're going to be looking to the inside first, and well before we start looking at a gas tax. In my own experience, I don't know about the rest of you, but the flavor for a gas tax amongst the people, even though they may cite situations where the roads aren't what they want them to be, the idea of a tax is not terribly popular. And so I think we'll all be looking pretty long and hard on this one. The gas tax, I think, right now is a stretch, given what you said, relative to the forecast. Politically, it's hard to make it work. And, of course, it's going to be more difficult politically next year, given an election year.
We will, okay, I was just going to say, we'll no doubt have more questions about transportation before we're done. I always say that we have the most well-informed audience of any television program in Minnesota, and we've got a question from a viewer that I hadn't heard about. Not that that proves anything. There are a lot of things I haven't heard about, but this viewer wants to know, last year said that there was a Senate bill to study the possibility of moving from LP gas to natural gas. The study was due at the beginning part of this year. Were there any, does anyone on the panel know anything about that discussion or the results of that study? Anybody
Probably
here?
none of us are on that committee, I think.
All right.
I'm not clear what that means.
For transportation?
Well, I think they're thinking about more from the LP gas shortage that we had last year.
Oh, okay, sure.
And fuel, so.
There is the pressurized gas, I'm trying to think of the technical name for it now, which is becoming more and more popular in vehicles. And maybe that's what they're talking about, but.
All right.
Pass.
We don't have, we have a,
Sorry about that.
we have a well-informed audience, and the panel doesn't know
It is
anything
not
about
an
your
accurate
question. So
bill.
call back next week with that question, maybe.
And it's the
next-
Senate apparently doing it.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. I suspect that relates to the heating issue that
I
we
think
had
so.
in the last couple of years. All right, so let's move on. We've got questions from viewers in the New London and Candy, Ojai area, and actually we had this question 2 weeks ago when we were last with you, so let's run it by the panel and see what they have to say. These viewers are concerned about allowing the state park system to increase. They're citing Sibley Park as an example of this. Substantial dollars invested in park expansion, but nothing in educational programming, and they think that maybe there should be some effort to regionalize this, more education programs. Is this an issue that's been on anybody's radar screen in terms of park expansion or park education programs?
Well, I think that it absolutely is on everybody's minds. How much can you maintain? Particularly DNR property, Parks and Trails already acquired. We know how big that maintenance budget is, and we are not beginning to do the asset preservation on existing parks. And so I think it's absolutely in the minds of everybody how much is too much, and because maintenance, operating and maintenance, is absolutely the reality that comes after the establishment. But I will say, all over the state, parks and trails continue to be very popular. They are in great demand. They come right out of the grassroots organizing around this. Some towns have even discovered it's a way to rebuild their local economy, the health and competitiveness of their area. Some of the most creative towns in greater Minnesota that I think are going to make it are those who tell this story. Our economy used to be based around the family farm. The family farm is disappearing. Our economy used to be built around Main Street businesses. The big box store outside of town has taken all the business away. And so they look at their assets And it's arts and culture, parks and trails, natural resources, museums, historic sites. They know that to continue to thrive as Greater Minnesota cities, that they have to rethink who they are. How do they continue to draw people there? How do they keep young people there? And it is all of these things that we used to consider frills, and now they are part of how some of these towns are reshaping themselves.
I need to put in a plug for town of Battle Lake in my district because they've done that. They're very close to Glendale State Park, and through a combination of efforts, the park has a trail that's been improved now, nice, very nice trail. Goes through the park, connects up with a county highway, and then it goes into the community. So it's like 3 legs, but it connects the town, and it basically just was used for the first time last summer, completed last summer. And you'll talk to the businesses, you'll talk to the people that live there. It did an amazing change for that community. It has brought a lot of people in for many different reasons. You have to see it to really understand what they've done. But the community, they all came together, again with the help of DNR and some other places that they got grant money and so forth. But it's bikes, it's hikes, it's family, it's created some new businesses downtown, and it's increased the amount of traffic in the park as well. So everybody wins. And it does present a whole new future, I think, for a town such as Battle Lake. So that's just one example.
And in my district, there's the Heartland Trail, which we did provide funding for one leg of it between Detroit Lakes and Frazee. But eventually the trail is to go all the way from Moorhead to Park Rapids, and it would go through the Buffalo River State Park, which I think, again, would increase the amount of activity in the park, which is a good thing. And it's good not just for recreational purposes, as Representative Hausman, you were mentioning. It does generate more economic activity in the area as well. And it also gets people outside and enjoying the great outdoors and engaging in physical activity, which we definitely want to encourage more of as we move forward. So I think, we got to look at those things more broadly and not just at the recreational aspect of it, but also the physical activity, looking at the economic activity that it generates as well.
I need to point out.
Go ahead.
I need to point out one thing. If you're in Battle Lake, look for the bike stands. They are the most creative bike stands you'll find in any place. All created by local artists, and it's just fabulous.
And we're all invited.
Explore Minnesota. You've got your pitch right here.
Bring your own bike. That's all.
I do think to the question, we probably need to, as Representative Hausman's pointed out, to take a little bit of pause here. We've got a lot to maintain out there before we add a lot more. All that said, in my area of the state, it's just remarkable to watch Highway 52 on a Thursday or Friday, and all of the bicycles on the backs of camping trailers or motorhomes going down into southeast Minnesota. It is an economic engine in terms of an attraction, and of course popular otherwise.
And I should maybe make another pitch for the Buffalo, or for the Heartland Trail,
Yes.
since we have the
Yes.
lead here. The Capital Investment Committee.
Not going to miss an opportunity here.
Right, but it is the only region in the state that does not have currently a regional trail going through it. So, and I feel that our region deserves to have what other regions of the state have as well.
We have a viewer from Rochester who wants to do a follow-up to our discussion about the 50-foot trail. And this viewer's question, I think...
50-foot buffer.
50-foot buffer. Excuse me, you're correct. 50-foot buffer. This viewer has, I think, what's a really good question. We touched on it. Where that 50-foot buffer has been used, have we noticed any improvement in the water quality? Is there any data on this?
There is, and of course, I just sat through all those hearings, and I should have absorbed all of that so I could raise it here. But yes, there is some very clear evidence already, and the six counties have done it, I believe, right? And so they would be they've done it voluntarily. They've figured it out. It is possible. And so we do have some areas where we can look at measurable impacts. I just don't have the statistics in my head yet.
All right.
There's a lot of issues related to water quality, though. We used to have Silver Lake in Rochester, 40,000 geese. Now, okay, they've sort of chased most of them away now, and maybe the water quality is a little bit better. But there's a lot of factors that enter in here.
So we have a question from a viewer on voting issues. We had a question a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to combine them, and I guess I'll look to you because I think you're sitting on elections, if I think you said. So we'll start with you, Senator Eakin. This viewer is concerned about voting rights for felons and thinks that we should expand those rights somewhat. And then a couple of weeks ago, we had some discussion about advancing the primary from August, which, as the viewer said, no one's in Minnesota in August. We should have it in June. So I'm not taking a stand on either of these issues, but I'll start with you. Has there been discussion about either of those issues?
There has been discussion of both of those issues. As far as the felons voting, there are many other states in the country that allow it. We're actually in the minority of states, I believe, that do not allow felons to vote after they've served their time, after they've done, served their penalty.
North Dakota. What we're really talking about here is the probationary period, or the period that follows their service.
Right. And North Dakota is one of those states that allows felons to vote, which is right next to my district, and it results in some confusion. There's a lot of people going back and forth between North Dakota and Minnesota, and people who've moved over from North Dakota sometimes have gone to vote thinking that the rules are the same or the laws are the same in Minnesota. And actually, that's the only issues that we've had come to the surface. Remember when the issue of the photo ID came forward, the only examples being used were where there were some cases where some ex-felons had voted and had gotten in trouble as a result. Again, I think it was a result of confusion. So that issue has come up. There's the JRLC, the Joint Religious Leadership Council or Conference. They were down just recently, and they were expressing concerns that if you don't allow people who have had troubles, been in trouble in the past, to rejoin society, that they're going to continue to be problems into the future. And so they were advocating on behalf of that. And the other issue, as far as moving the primary up, I don't have a strong feeling on that one way or the other. I guess there are some good arguments in favor of moving it up, and that you shorten the primary season, and then the general election season will be longer, which and also I guess there's the issue of participation. Participation is abysmally low in the primaries especially. And I don't know when the best time is, if June would be a better time as far as encouraging people to get out to vote. It was very bad this last time around in August. But there's
in a state like Minnesota, you'd think we should never vote in the summer, right? Everybody's off at their cabin. Is the felons voting a bipartisan issue in the Senate?
It is, yeah. We've had some
certainly is in the
bipartisan, yeah. So it is a bipartisan issue, not one that falls along party lines at all. And
someone observed they had never expected to see Tony Cornish and I as co-authors on a bill, and we're both authors on that bill. So.
And what's the effect of that bill? Why don't we tell our viewers what we're really talking about? What would that mean?
After they've served their prison term, but there's this you probably know the terms right. More than I, but they would regain the right to vote. And it would just enfranchises a group of people who have been disenfranchised.
And the courts have indicated to me that it really makes things a lot easier for them to keep track of and so forth. So they're behind this, as far as I can tell.
And I would just say there may be felons, albeit they're released, that are the kind of felons, but maybe never, at least in my view, should they ever vote. But on the other hand, there's also felons, these fifth degree felony things and so on. It's unfortunate, in some cases a bad night out, and people get tagged with these things. They're on their record. They're otherwise good people working about society, all amongst us. But they had that one bad night out, and they got this felony conviction, and they're labeled for life. And it's not only voting; it's getting jobs and patient care situations and so on and so forth. I really think we need to look at that.
We believe in second chances.
All right, a viewer from, and I should just mention because we had some confusion on this 2 weeks ago. People were wondering why we couldn't move the primary back to September. That's driven by issues with military ballots, which is why I think the legislature was forced to move it from September to August, or at least that's what we learned on this program a few years ago. So I pass that along for whatever it's worth.
I do sometimes wonder, though. I mean, we get stuff around this world pretty quickly now, FedEx and so on and so forth. Patient specimens coming to Rochester or overnight virtually. So whatever.
Federal government, take it up with the folks
Yeah,
in
right,
Washington.
yeah.
Viewers concerned about train service from Duluth to Minneapolis. Is there anything happening on that? And I guess maybe we should also talk about train service from Rochester to the Twin Cities. There's been discussion of that. We'll start with you, Senator Senjum. What do you think?
Well, I don't know a lot about Duluth, and what I do know about the Rochester possibility is that it's being at least indicated to us that when and if this ever happens, at least in the near term, it will be a private venture with private money to both build it and operate it, and that albeit the money probably isn't going to be made on the passenger traffic itself. It will be made on the commercial developments around the stop sites related to this train. So we were told possibly there'll be an announcement this month. We'll see, but it's all being at least portrayed right now as a private investment along the public right-of-way.
There does still continue to be some interest in intercity passenger rail. For us, the routes that we've studied are the connection between the Twin Cities and Chicago, the connection to Duluth, NLX, Northern Lights Express. The Rochester one, they sometimes call the zip line, I think.
The zip line, yes.
And so a lot of preliminary work has been done as they look at corridor siting. It is slowed down somewhat by the fact that the federal government right now can't seem to pass a transportation bill that's long-term. When Jim Oberstar was still there and was chairing the committee, he had actually a proposal on the table which would have been a 10-year bill that would have allowed states to plan, and that did absolutely include all funding for all modes, including intercity passenger rail. Unfortunately, we have slowed down a great deal on that planning.
Well, the plan from Duluth to the Twin Cities would not be sharing the Amtrak track. So that would be a possibility of actually success. Mm-hmm. If you're putting anything on where the North Star runs, you're competing with the oil, the regular freight, the grain, and you kind of get squeezed out. So the reliability of that is what probably makes that less than successful. You can't count on it to get you where you're going on time. So any of these other trains would have to be better than Amtrak too, because Amtrak can't get you to where you're going on time for some of those same reasons. So I think it'll be a while till we see. We've got a short line that runs from Fergus Falls to Fargo or Moorhead, Dilworth, I guess it is. Someone suggested we could put a passenger car on that, but it's rated at about 10 miles an hour. Be a slow little journey.
Improving the track and improving the rolling stock.
Like the Dakota Rail line from Hutchinson to Mound. Yeah, it's probably not destined for.
With respect to the Rochester, there is I would say nothing short of massive resistance to going over farmland and breaking new ground for these.
They're looking much more at the Highway 52 corridor.
It has to be a Highway 52 corridor if it's ever going to happen.
Any thoughts on trains?
Well, Representative Nornes was bringing up the issue of the congestion again on the rail lines because of the oil trains, and I've heard stories from people who have been traveling by passenger rail that have had bad stories of not being able to get to their location or destination on time. And I do think that is a major issue that needs to be addressed. And I know, the railroads have been talking about double tracking to try to relieve some of the congestion, but then that creates relieve some of the congestion on the rails, but then that creates more congestion off the rails trying to get across the tracks because you're going to have two rails now that you're trying to get across, which increases the need for underpasses and things of that nature again. But so there's some real railroads are a very significant issue that we're going to have to grapple with this session.
I think there may be some nostalgia here too, that people maybe grew up when trains were on their downhill slide. Mm-hmm. Same thing with trolleys. You look at the early history of the Twin Cities, University Avenue, they had trolleys about every minute, full of people. And people think that's pretty romantic, and they'd kind of like to see that again. That's where the light rail comes in, I guess. So.
And with young people, the millennials, the 20s and 30-year-olds, they want it, and they're going to the cities that have it. And the business community knows that's the generation we need here for the future. And for whatever reason, whether it's the high college debt and they can't afford a car, or they really prefer, we used to think of the car as freedom, now they think of no car as freedom. They want to be able to walk and bike and take public mass transit to live near where they work. It's a very different expectation. And Denver is getting more of that population than we are, and the business community notices that. And so at least here, the St. Paul Area Chamber, the Greater Minneapolis, the Twin West, they all have strongly supported transportation options in the Twin Cities.
A viewer from that famous Minnesota community, Unidentified Town, wants to know, what about those bicyclists? Why don't they pay for a license or trail pass like cross-country skiers and snowmobilers to help maintain the trails? Is the legislature discussing this?
We do, and I have to say, I think I've heard bicyclists saying that they the question is, how do you do it? You know, do you do it like license tabs on a car or something? The bicycles appreciate all the infrastructure that has been put in place for safe biking. So it's absolutely something on the agenda. We just haven't moved on it.
Bicycles don't, there's much wear and tear on
Correct.
the environment, the trail
That's true.
as a result, so you don't have, unlike say a snowmobile or motorcycles.
Now, this session, one member suggested at a committee hearing, so it was public, that we ought to be charging walkers because we had no responsibility to get people out of their house and walking on trails. And that one didn't go over very well.
Well, all I'll say about bike trails is I had my bike out yesterday because of the nice weather, and I took a chunk of beer bottle in my tire and had a flat. So we've got to do something about this. Fix this problem. Get those beer bottles picked up. Well, anyway, we'll leave the beer bottles and move on to education. So there's been a lot of discussion about pre-K. There are a variety of different plans floating around. It's been a priority of the Dayton administration, but there's also been a lot of input from both the House and the Senate about that. And we have viewers who are concerned about what is that going to look like and what do we think is going to happen this session. Who wants to take a run at this?
Well, we should give our
Well,
education
we'll
person
start with the
first
education
track.
person.
I can just share my opinion. This is all it is my opinion. I think the pre-K or the 4-year-old full-time program, I think, is not going to fly for a lot of reasons. Very expensive. A lot of pushback from particularly those that are child care providers, the daycare providers, and so forth. The 4-year-olds, if they're taken out of their program, they probably can't exist anymore. We have a limited number of providers like that in the first place. So I think that's something we have to really consider. For this, it's a good thing probably to think about or to have even, but it does have some other consequences, I think, that we have to understand. Funding is one of the major things. So as far as the House is concerned, and that's just my opinion, and I don't think that's going to be something we'll deal with in the end.
There's such an understanding now that that early childhood education helps for their entire academic career, and so I think more and more people understand the need to put more of our resources in those early years. Going to all-day kindergarten, I think, was strongly supported, and I think that the idea about all-day for 4-year-olds follows on that same theme. Some have even suggested that if we focused on funding for that, this other program that we have for scholarships, where we sort of underfund that, it would allow more of that scholarship money to be focused on maybe the younger child. We now know even that 0 to 3 is so crucial to begin to educate and shape the brains of those little ones.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I guess I believe that we need to have kids be kids for a while too, because we could really structure them to they don't know how to have fun anymore. But we have to also remember K-12. I mean, the big picture, and I think we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing to fund that correctly. I think that's a priority before we do some of these other things. That's all it.
Senator?
Yeah, I was going to mention, it was interesting, I had somebody in my office that came in to talk about fetal alcohol syndrome, and one of the things they had told me was, that they felt that we were kind of pushing from the wrong direction. We were going from kindergarten, trying to go down to 5- and 4-year-olds, and they said we should start at prenatal first and then move up from there. They said that's where you're going to get the bigger bang for the buck because, for instance, with fetal alcohol syndrome, if you don't prevent the fetal alcohol syndrome, you're going to be pouring money into that child for the rest of their lives, dealing with the ill consequences of that. So it's critical that we reach the children as early as we possibly can, make sure that are on the right track from the very beginning, are given the nutrition they need, are given the medical care they need, are given the safe environments that they need and good learning environments. And I thought that was a very good point that we need to look at. As far as early childhood programs generally, I've always been an advocate of having a more broad-based kind of program, not just targeting the programs towards maybe the lowest income people. I think it should be for everybody, and part of the reason for that is there's an old saying I've heard that programs for poor people tend to be poor programs. And it's because they're not adequately funded. They don't have the broad-based support necessary to maintain the funding that they need. I guess one example I could use of that is like Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is for everybody that's over the age of 65. Very popular, very well funded, very well run. Medicaid is just targeted towards low income and is oftentimes struggling for its very existence. So and early childhood is so important. We need to make sure that every child is provided with the opportunity to succeed in life. So,
I've had and probably all have had the occasion to go into a daycare for a few hours on given times, several times actually. There's a fair amount of education that does happen there. And I don't think we can necessarily just forget about that and say it's not good enough, because many of these daycare providers are pretty well versed in terms of this early training that we believe so is important. So I think we have to think about that. The other thing I get, and it's just feedback from back home, is many of the schools don't have the facilities. And by the way, many of our schools have enough infrastructure problems in and of themselves, whether it's roofs or anything else that need money. And the idea of building extra space now for the younger people is another challenge for them. And then they also say, look, we've got other problems just within the system as it is, and if we're going to spend money, maybe we ought to spend it there. Then I would go on to add, some of our inner city schools, our graduation rates way below, I don't think, what any of us would suggest it might be acceptable. Maybe we should put some money there. So I think it's a matter of priorities and where we spend this money, and is this the best priority? And I think that will be the great debate.
I think one of the things we overlook when we're talking about child care is that a child care center has teachers, licensed teachers,
right, yeah,
in that program. That's we just kind of take that for granted, but that makes for a high quality program because of those qualifications that are needed. So I agree that we need to do all we can for the real young children, but I think we're doing a lot already. And again, K-12, what I'm hearing from superintendents, they're not going to be very happy with the 1% that the governor is offering. That's not going to do it. Yeah. So that's a priority, at least as I'm
So let's talk about K-12. Should we start, Representative Hausman? Let's start with you. K-12 funding, where do you think that goes?
Well, I'm looking at
should we start with Representative Norris?
Yeah, I'm in the minority now.
You did that
so
last time.
we won't be, unfortunately, we're not writing the bills this year. We knew where we might have gone. Now we do have to wait to see what kind of priority the majority will bring forward. And my understanding is you have talked about putting some additional money into the K-12 formula. So we might, in the House, we might be moving in that direction. I was pleased that the governor focused all of his comments when he heard about the potential positive forecast. He was going to focus like a laser beam on two things: education and transportation. And we all know, education has always been the most significant. It's the biggest part of the budget. I think it's the highest priority bipartisanly for us. We know that's all about our future, the economic health of this state, if we have a good educated populace. So there's strong support for it. Transportation we've talked about already, but both of those, I think, are reasons why Minnesota is already sort of ahead of the curve. We put a high priority on education.
Well, and I agree with that. I think the focus, again, this is just my opinion, but K-12, that'll be one of the priorities, and it's going to have to be more than 1%. I think we're going to have every school district very upset with the legislature in both parties. The other thing is nursing homes are really in dire need of help all across the state of Minnesota. So unless we want nursing homes to just go out of business, and some have already done that, that has to be another priority for us. What that looks like and how much we can afford to do, I don't know, but I think those two are very critical. And then beyond that, transportation, I guess, would be the other one. And I don't serve on transportation, and I wish them luck trying to figure that one out, because, the plan is for what it was going to take for the next 6 years. I would be satisfied if we just looked at the next 2 years. What's really important, what's really critical, what needs to be done. Let's figure out how to do that. I think it would be less scary than looking at 6 years, 10 years. And I think this would be a pretty big number. Yeah. So if we can work on something that's really manageable and get it done.
Senator Senjum, education, K-12, formula, those kinds of things.
I'm going to believe that, that we're going to come out of this with a number far better than 1%. I mean, in the worst days that I've ever been in the legislature, $6.2 billion deficits, we were always, education was a priority. Maybe at the expense of a lot of other things at the time, but that was just always the priority. I think it's going to remain the priority. And the other thing, and Senator Eakin is very involved in this, of course, has been mentioned, is nursing homes, the group homes, those situations which I think we cannot forget about. I think there's almost a moral responsibility that we face up to that, and we haven't in the past, and I think we're going to do that this year.
Senator?
And I agree about the importance of K-12 education. It has been the reason that we have such a high quality of life here in Minnesota, is because we've invested so much. And it is 40% of our state budget, so it's the biggest thing we do in the state of Minnesota. And it's for a reason, because we get the biggest dividends from investing in our young children. It's our greatest resource is our children, and it is our future, as they always say. And I think it's important to note that during some of those deficit periods, we saw borrowing from the schools, and I think it's important to note that we did pay the schools back over the last 2 years and did invest, start once again reinvesting in our education system, which is so critically important. And you also mentioned long-term care, which I do believe we need to invest more in, and that we need to look at a long-term solution to long-term care, not just patching things up for a short period and limping along. We need to start grappling with the problem of the baby boom generation that are going to be needing many of those services shortly, and so I feel that we should, and we need to do the same thing with transportation, that long-term solution in my view. And I think we need to do the same thing for seniors and people with disabilities as we have for our roads and bridges. I think we need to have a dedicated source of revenue for long-term care. And that's one of the things I believe we need to be working on, is identifying a dedicated source of revenue.
Any idea what that might look like?
Well, I have a proposal in that closes a very large tax loophole. That many people may not know this, but the highest income people do not pay any Social Security tax on any of their highest income. And what I was proposing is that, and by the way, it's only the highest income people that receive that special treatment. And what I'm proposing is that we'd close that loophole and treat the highest income people the same as we treat everyone else. And by doing that, that would raise a significant amount of revenue, and it would be a long-term solution to the problem, and dedicate that money to long-term care for seniors and those with disabilities.
And don't you think we have to have different models of care at that point, too? I mean, right now we have just one or two ways of dealing with that, but we just have to be more creative in terms of different models for different needs.
Right, and we are going to have to be looking at more like home care services, and I think a whole continuum of services, including assisted living. And so we have to be more innovative, I think, as we move on. This problem cannot be solved. It's a problem of such a magnitude. Again, because of the baby boom generation, we're seeing demographic changes the likes of which we've never seen in world history. So we truly are venturing into
everybody else around this table except you, Senator.
I think I'm just on the tail end of it.
We're all causing the problem. So, So, any last thoughts on that, Representative Hausman? I don't think I called
No,
you.
I think there's a commitment all around. We're fairly universal in our approach on those.
I would say
priorities.
I certainly share the commitment to take care of these issues. On the other hand, would suggest that I also think we ought to get rid of taxing Social Security, and we have a bill in that to do that. And I think it's going to get some discussion this year.
We have about 30 seconds left. Viewer has questions about, are there going to be any constitutional amendments this year? Normally, you would not expect to see that in the first year of the session, but of course it is a possibility. Senator, any thought on that?
Well, there's a possibility, and actually what I was just discussing, I was putting in as a constitutional amendment because I think we do need to engage the general public in the issue of this long-term care crisis that we're facing. It's of such a magnitude, and we're going to have to look at the variety of solutions that includes efficiencies as well. It's so big that we need to look at every possible tool that's there.
Do you see any particular constitutional amendments that are likely to pass the Senate majority party?
I think it's unlikely this year, partly because in constitutional amendments oftentimes pass in the second year because right now we're very engaged and involved in trying to set the two-year budget.
Right.
So,
Representative Nornes on the House side.
I have heard of no talk about it.
Haven't either.
I don't expect
I've
any.
heard of nothing.
I want to remind our viewers, we get questions frequently of a viewer who wants to ask about television advertising for alcohol. There are a whole swath of issues that our legislature doesn't deal with. Those are all FCC and federal questions. And if we don't get to your question, that's why. Sorry about that. We've run out of time. I want to thank our panel. I want to thank you, the viewers, for being with us. I want to remind you we'll be with you next week and all the weeks that follow until the legislature goes home, whenever that might be. Thank you all, and good night.
There's much more about Your Legislators online at pioneer.org/yourlegislators. Find out more about the history of the program, who's been a guest, and watch all of our past episodes. There's also a photo gallery, informative links, and much more. You can also get involved and stay in touch by following us on Twitter and join us in the discussion on our Facebook page. Thank you for watching Your Legislators. Major funding for Your Legislators is provided by Move Minnesota, a statewide coalition fighting for a 10-year commitment to fixing our dire transportation needs. A safe, reliable transportation system strengthens Minnesota's economy. Join the conversation at movemn.org. Additional funding provided by Flaherty and Hood has provided quality legal and legislative services to clients in Greater Minnesota for more than 20 years. Our legal team focuses on municipal employment and environmental law, while our lobbyists energetically represent clients at the state capitol. Online at flaherty-hood.com. MAPE members, making Minnesota Clean Water's safe communities, quality education, and veterans care happen. We work hard for Minnesotans.